Kyoto burned, while the men sworn to protect it argued over a throne. What began as a succession dispute inside Japan's ruling house became years of urban warfare. This shattered the Ashikaga order and opened the door to the Sengoku era. This is the Onin War, the conflict that destroyed Kyoto. In the mid-15th century, Japan was ruled in name by the Ashikaga shogunate. The shogun lived in Kyoto close to the emperor and ancient rituals of authority. On paper, the country still had a center. In reality, power was drifting outward. Provincial daimyo controlled land, taxes, and armies. Warrior temples fielded their own forces. Great families competed for appointments and privileges. The system worked only as long as the capital could settle disputes without violence. Then came a problem that sounds small and becomes deadly when institutions are weak: succession. Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa had no heir for years, so he adopted his younger brother Yoshimi as successor. Soon after, Yoshimasa's wife gave birth to his son, Yoshihisa. Now the shogunate had two plausible futures, and every ambitious faction could claim it was defending legitimacy. Two rival power brokers stepped forward. Hosokawa Katsumoto supported Yoshimi Yamana. Sozan supported the child Yoshihisa. Both were seasoned political operators, and both understood the real prize was not the heir but control of the shogun's government. Whoever dominated Kyoto could shape appointments, confirm land rights, and claim the moral high ground as protector of order. By 1467, the capital had become a trap. Rival clans fortified their mansions, summoned samurai from the provinces, and stocked weapons inside the city. Tension built through threats, provocations, and small clashes. Yet ceremonies continued, as if ritual could hold back war. Kyoto waited, armed, for the first spark. When fighting began, it did not look like one clean battle. It looked like a city being eaten alive. Samurai attacked fortified residences, set districts on fire, and fought street by street. Kyoto's wooden buildings and narrow lanes turned combat into wildfire. Flames jumped from roof to roof. Markets collapsed overnight. Civilians fled with whatever they could carry. In a capital built for beauty and courtly life, war arrived as smoke. The Onin War is often described as two sides, but once violence became normal, the conflict fragmented. Imagine walking through Kyoto at the start of the conflict. Great mansion walls were reinforced with earth and timber. Watchtowers appeared where elegant gates once stood. Soldiers slept in courtyards beside stacked arrows and bundles of spears. A rumor could empty an entire street. When fires started, they moved faster than messengers. Whole blocks of wooden houses became a single roaring line of flame, and families ran toward temples hoping sacred ground would protect them. Many temples could not. Some were drawn into the fighting and their storehouses became prizes. The succession issue also poisoned every negotiation. If Yoshimi became shogun, Hosokawa influence would dominate the court. If Yoshihisa prevailed, Yamana allies would control appointments for a generation. That meant compromise looked like surrender. Each side feared the future more than it feared the present, so even temporary truces collapsed under suspicion. And when provincial lords saw that Kyoto could not guarantee justice, they began creating justice on their own terms. A dispute over one village boundary could now be settled by force. A minor retainer could overthrow a complacent lord. Step by step, Japan learned that stability was something you built with organization, not something you received from the capital. Smaller houses chose factions for survival. Local gangs exploited chaos. Temples tried to defend their lands and storehouses, and across Japan, provincial lords watched Kyoto burn and drew a dangerous conclusion. If the shogun cannot keep peace in his own city, then no authority is sacred. That loss of belief mattered more than the loss of buildings. The shogunate still issued orders, but authority without enforcement becomes suggestion. Each month the war continued. It trained the warrior class to rely less on decrees and more on organized force. At the center stood Ashikaga Yoshimasa, a shogun remembered for patronizing culture and failing at politics. He did nurture the refined Higashiyama taste that shaped Japanese aesthetics, but his indecision on succession and inability to impose a settlement allowed court rivalry to metastasize into civil war. In a fragile system, hesitation is fuel. What made the war especially destructive was political theater. Neither faction wanted to look like a rebel. Both claimed they were defending the shogun and the proper order, so Kyoto saw a grotesque contradiction. Loyalty proclamations written on fine paper while neighborhoods burned. As the years dragged on, the conflict spread beyond Kyoto's walls. Provincial daimyo used the capital's distraction to settle local grudges and seize territory. Old land disputes turned into open campaigns. Peasant communities fortified villages. New leaders rose not because they had noble lineage, but because they could feed followers, pay soldiers, and win fights. The rules of power were shifting from rank to results. Kyoto's destruction also changed how war was fought. Urban combat rewarded arson, fortification, and attrition. Armies learned to hold positions, cut supply lines, and break morale. For civilians, the cost was relentless. War in a pre-modern city meant hunger, disease, exposure, and displacement, not just deaths in battle. In 1473, the war should have ended. Hosokawa Katsumoto died. Yamana Sozan died soon after. If the conflict had truly been about those two men, peace would have followed immediately. It did not. Their successors inherited armed camps, obligations, and the fear that compromise would look like weakness. The war continued because it had created its own momentum. By 1477, the main factions finally withdrew from Kyoto, but withdrawal was not resolution. It was abandonment. The capital was scarred, impoverished, and politically diminished. Aristocratic families had fled. Commerce had been shattered. The shogunate still existed, but it had lost the ability to command the provinces. Japan's center had failed. This is why the Onin War is treated as the doorway to the Sengoku era, the age of warring states. After Onin daimyo increasingly acted as sovereigns, they built castles to hold territory. They imposed new laws, organized tax surveys, and created disciplined military systems. Castle towns grew into economic hubs. Merchants gained leverage. Even local leagues and religious coalitions sometimes challenged daimyo rule. Japan became a competitive arena where authority was measured in control, not ceremony. The war also reshaped the psychology of ambition. Before, court rank and pedigree were the language of legitimacy. After Onin, performance mattered more. A leader who could organize an army and stabilize a domain could rise rapidly. This shift helped create the conditions for the next century's unifiers. Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu did not emerge from stable institutions. They rose from a landscape that had been trained by chaos. And yet, in one of history's sharpest contrasts, refined culture did not vanish. In the same era of political collapse, tastes in art and ritual evolved. Elites sometimes cling to aesthetics when authority slips, using ceremony as a form of control. The tea tradition, garden design, and a quieter sense of beauty developed even while the capital suffered. It is not that war created beauty. It is that people seek structure when the world becomes violent. So what is the Onin War? At its core, it is a warning about what happens when a succession dispute meets weak institutions. A problem that should have been managed by law and negotiation was settled by armed factions inside the capital. Once violence began, it rewarded those who escalated. The longer it lasted, the more it empowered local actors who ignored the center. And even when the original leaders died, the conflict could not be turned off easily. Kyoto eventually rebuilt, and today it is remembered for temples and serenity. But beneath that image is an older memory, a time when the capital burned, legitimacy cracked, and Japan stepped into a century of war. If you want to understand why later samurai warlords were so ruthless, why castles rose across the countryside, and why unification required overwhelming force, start here, in the Onin War, when the center could no longer hold. What do you think matters more in history, the person chosen as heir, or the institutions that prevent ambition from becoming war? Stay curious and keep exploring Asia's turning points.